Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we just left off on 11. We'd finished 11, I think. So it's saying strength. Strength. I am the strength devoid of desire and attachment. Indicative of if you have desire and attachment, you lose your strength. So the only desire which is permitted is, in a sense, is that desire which is leading you to the ultimate goal of truth. So you have desires, you've got to pursue your desires, but in the back of your mind, you understand the purpose of what you're doing, what the direction is. So desire that's not contrary to Dharma, verse states. A desire where you put in the optimum effort to get to the self. Opposite is that you put in optimum effort, not realizing that you're maneuvering away from the self. And in fact, it doesn't resolve one's stress or mental agitation. So desire devoid of attachment. So the way to gain anything is to lose it, Rama Tirtha puts it. So when you have real power, you don't use it. When you have power and you can see somebody's insecurities, if it's rajasic, tamasic, not real power, you use it. So not that you shouldn't use your power, but it's only for the direction to take you towards something higher or the interest of the whole. So when you see an unselfish person, they're dropping their desires. A selfish person is hoarding their desires, collecting them to chase more. One thing gets fulfilled, the next is on a chase to accumulate the next object of desire. So we have to understand we have desires, we need to pursue them, but where's our mind? Where's our thoughts? What are they pitched up on? What direction are they heading? So he's saying also, when you gain this power of something greater, bigger, unselfishness, that selflessness through that service and sacrifice, you also, within your desire set, become the enjoyer. And as you're putting in the efforts to something bigger, it permits you and supports you and enables you to keep being that witness. So you become a commander of everything. So service and sacrifice is key to refining yourself. not wanting anything for yourself personally, is a grand status that one has to keep pedaling on the path of service, sacrifice, jnanam, vijnanam, that knowledge. You've got to pedal against removing that ignorance by gaining knowledge through that study, reflection. You plan through it consistently to maneuver yourself. Something more refined. Let's go there. We start 12.
Echaiva satvika bhava rajasa tamasascha ye matta evehiti tan viddhi natvaham teshu te mayi.
So, Dharma, if you could read the verse.
And whatever natures that are sattvika, rajasika, and tamasika, these know as from me alone. I am not in them, but they are in me.
Okay. So we start topic 3 of this chapter. The vicious do not know or seek the Brahman. So whatever the natures, I don't think we've come across Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic too much in this class. In the Monday class, we've been doing nothing but Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic natures, and yet to come the big chapter of chapter 18. But here he's putting forward whatever natures that there are, whether it be Sattvic, Rajasic or Tamasic, these come from me, but I'm not in them. So meaning in the self that you can't make the truth or the Brahman or the self responsible for the gunas, the attributes of your world, your life, of the limits, essentially. So it all comes from me, but I'm not them. If you can imagine this from a simple analogy, if you can imagine when you watch a movie, you watch so many different types of movies. You can watch a comedy, a tragedy, a thriller, you can watch a documentary, but that movie screen which you're watching it on it enables the different types of movies to go on. It enables the different qualities to appear, a flood or intense heat on the screen, but it isn't the screen. Those qualities are, the screen, isn't the movie, if that makes sense. So similarly, the Brahman isn't the Rajasic, Tamasic, Sattvic natures, but without the Brahman, they don't exist, as it were. So the Brahman, I'm not in them, they are in me. Got to understand it that way, it's tricky. So out of the Brahman comes the world. There's lots of different stories of creation. Each religion has the story of how the whole thing has come about. But what you've got to note, whatever your story is, the world actually is here. You see it, it exists. So it's already created as far as you're concerned. You can't deny it. So what we've got to do is assess what the world is made up of, so we can maneuver through it and understand how to take ourselves from A to B to C. So many places throughout, especially if you remember in chapter 2, it gave a whole series of what the world is made up of. So the world's made up of dvandvas, opposites. If you take away the opposites, the goods, the bads, there's no world. Another way here, he's saying the world is made up of sattva, rajas, and tamas. If you take away sattva, rajas, and tamas, there's no world. So these qualities and attributes are making this flux of change, this world, the combination of all of those differences and the heterogeneous variety of those, in fact. So it doesn't matter if you're English or Indian, or if you're Chinese or Japanese, or if you're Australian, or if you're American. We all have these qualities of which make up our personality and are superimposed on the world of sattva, rajas, and tamas. So it's to understand what sattva, rajas, and tamas are, so you can maneuver out of them. So the lowest state of mind is tamasic, lethargic, sleepy, inactive. If something exploded next to this person, they wouldn't probably react. Indolent, inertia. Have we spoken about sattva, rajas, and tamas in this class? No. Much? Yeah,
We have discussed, but not in detail as we did with the Vedanta treatise class.
Okay. Okay. So these three qualities are really important to understand how you can move through your evolution. So tamasic is that trait in you, that nature in you, which is sleepy, lazy, inertia, indolence, not going anywhere, essentially. Rajas is that frenziedness in you, that activeness in you, that chase in you, chase of desire at any cost in you. It creates that mental agitation, that chase for the material, having no time, always being pressured. Rajasic. What can I get out of it? It's never really what can I put into it. Rajasic, that's the quality. And sattvic, if you consider opposed to rajasics, a rajasic person is always busy, has no time. When you consider we all have 24 hours in the day, it's up to us how we divide our time, whether we have time or not. A sattvic person is poised, clear-headed, refined, objective, has time, punctual, puts back, serves. These are three traits. Our job is to evolve from tamas to rajas to sattva to transattva to get to your truth. So sattvic qualities manifest early in the morning. It's not that they don't manifest in the evening. You might be a sattvic person and you can be doing things in the evening, but you make the most of the morning time to do the subtler things in life, because that's when you're most receptive. You're able to absorb information like this in the morning, at the end of the day, if you try to absorb information like this, it's like, okay, it's okay if you've got no other choice, but it hardly moves you. It's a sluggish time of day. So to cultivate that refinement, sattva surfaces at the early hours in the day. So it's great and good to make use of that. So what he's saying here is these qualities come out of me, but I'm not any of these qualities. The Brahman is not any of the purity. That truth doesn't have qualities, period. It's like saying I think you can all imagine it, whether you drink it or not, Coca-Cola. The backdrop of Coca-Cola is what? What do you need to make Coca-Cola? I'm not asking for the ingredients or what's holding it together? What's enabling it to be Coca-Cola? Just you can guess, it doesn't matter.
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. Okay, that gives it the fizz. What else? Take a step back from that. More simpler.
Sugar.
Sugar is definitely constituent of Coca-Cola.
The brand name.
Oh,
The brand name, Coca-Cola.
maybe I'm not clear, but yes, that's there. In a glass of Coca-Cola, the main thing is water. You don't see water in the Coca-Cola, but you need water for the Coca-Cola. That purity of the Coca-Cola, if you could ever say, is water. But so it's like saying the water backs it, but it's not Coca-Cola. You get what I mean? I don't know if that's helpful. So it's water with impurities, of which one is sugar in a big way. So the Brahman in this verse is stating, I am the Brahman. The sattva, rajas, and tamas, the sattvic nature is pure and refined. It's still not the Brahman per se, but it comes out of the Brahman. Very tricky to understand. Because of its trickiness, we make a mistake. We mistake the identity of Brahman as the world. We make, if we remember our snake and rope example, we see a snake instead of the rope because we didn't understand what the rope was. So because we didn't see the rope, we've made an idea that there's something similar. But actually it's a rope, actually it's a snake. So we non-apprehend the rope to be a snake because we've misapprehended the rope. We see a snake. We've non-apprehended, we've misapprehended the Brahman. Sorry, we've non-apprehended the Brahman because we don't see the Brahman. We project all these qualities which create the world. Just mistaken identity almost, which causes the illusion. Don't worry. You just have to take your morning hours to think about it a little bit. How you might even in your everyday, you sometimes see something and you mistake it for something else. Well, in a big way, we're mistaking this world as our truth. And it's actually trying to tell us that it's something else. That's massive. All in a verse or two. Let's read it. Everyone okay? Don't worry. That one. Charanjit. I don't think I can hear you. You're on mute. Just turn it again. Try again. You can put it in the chat if you'd like. Dhamma, if you'd like to read.
The third topic covers verses 12 to 15. It explains the plight of those who are ignorant of Brahman. They abandon Brahman and viciously run after this world. This verse gives the constitution of the world and its relation with Brahman. Brahman manifests as three distinct gunas, qualities, in this world: sattva, purity; rajas, passion; and tamas, indolence. The nature of sattva is equanimity, serenity, and poise. That of rajas, attachment, desire, and agitation; and tamas, ignorance, indolence, and inertia. The world abounds in ignorance, tamas. People know practically nothing about themselves. Who are you? Where did you come from? Where are you going from here? When are you going? What is your origin? How did you get here? Thus, endless questions baffle human understanding. Human beings remain unaware that they are immersed in total ignorance. Ignorance is the base from which rajas springs forth in the form of attachment, desire, and mental agitation. Rajas drives people to desire-prompted activities and renders their minds restless. As and when tamas and rajas reduce, sattva increases. The world becomes more peaceful, serene, and poised.
So what you might just observe in your day is how many times, it's difficult to observe this, but you can attempt to see how many times you get distracted from one task to another. And what distracts you? Just observe. How many times do you get involved in something that you're not supposed to be doing in your list or your schedule of the day? That's how engrossed or our desire set is. Just gives you a little insight of how our minds plays a trick and makes us chase various desires. So the lack of independence we have actually from our world, and the dependency we are in our thinking upon our world. Just observe, try doing it. See what you do throughout the day through your list of scheduled jobs. We all have that, where your mind goes off. Bring it back. But also then ask yourself the question, is this taking me to the self or not? or to something? Is it evolving me or not? Is it keeping me in a rajasic state or not? Or is it keeping me away from tamas or not? Is it keeping me, evolving me to be more sattvic or not? Just with these very basic definitions, check yourself, what you're doing. Because the more tamasic and the more rajasic it is, the more you're reinforcing the world you see is solid. And there is only that. So you've got no other choice but to be encapsulated by it. Whereas if you just step away, you perhaps recognize that it's got a transient nature and things aren't all as they seem. You want to kind of maybe consider this in the morning. Reflect on it. Let's go, 13. Let's continue.
There's one paragraph left.
Yes, please.
Krishna pronounces that the gunas have emerged from him, that the gunas are in him, but he is not in them. Krishna uses me to mean Brahman, the supreme God. Brahman projects the gunas and their worldly expressions out of itself as the ocean projects waves with all their surface disturbances. The waves are in the ocean, but the ocean is not in the waves. The waves are limited. They go through birth and death. The ocean is unlimited, without birth or death. The waves are disturbed. The deep ocean supporting the waves remains ever quiet and serene. Similarly, the world may be disturbed and agitated, but Brahman remains ever peaceful and blissful. Thus, Brahman stays unaffected by the qualities and properties of the world that it projects.
So you just have to observe that everything's got a transient nature. Comes out of that Brahman, that truth. So not to get hooked onto that transient nature. Let it pass. Okay, it comes and goes. Do what you have to do. Understand it's in a flux of change. Just as the waves come and go. But the ocean is the same. The ocean, it's kind of clear, the ocean isn't the waves. That's something, if it's part of it, it comes out of it. The waves come out of the ocean, but it's not the same. It's got a stillness, a depth. The Brahman is something different than the qualities. Let's go. 13. Ash.
I was thinking it's quite difficult to see the gunas within yourself. You know, when you're sort of moving between one or the other, depending on the activities that you may be engaged in. But I think it's probably, as a starting, it's quite easy to see it for those around you, like in a family or an office environment. I'm in an office, and I can see people who do the same, we're doing the same task, but those who approach with a tamasic sort of viewpoint of, I'll just do what I can do and I'm not really going to do all the way, and those who are just rushing into it and just actively getting things done. And then, yeah, you just see the gunas in I think it's easier to observe it around you, to start understanding how it may be within you as well when you're applying those same traits.
Everything is easy to see outside.
Yeah.
It's always easy to see the faults outside. It's very tricky to look at what one has to evolve and refine within. Hence, one has to take aside that time to reflect, study, fortify yourself. You can learn from your surrounds, you see it. Yeah, you're quite right. You see it in your surrounds. So you see the temperament in which you live, the society, the community, the country. You see what's going on. You understand it. You have to take it back and analyze what traits you're holding and how you can maneuver out of it. So then the whole of the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is actually going to be discussing the personality traits of sattva, rajas, and tamas, because every human being has sattva, rajas, and tamas. Doesn't matter who you are. Different degrees, different combinations. One might have more rajas, another might have more sattva. What are your activities, your intellect, your mind, your steadfastness? What are the constituents to actions? How have you refined them, or how can you? What are they made up of? Is what comes in the 18th chapter, the personality chart. Very detailed, sattva, rajas, and tamasic, and also in the 17th chapter. Anybody wants to come on Monday mornings, please come on Monday morning when we start that after Easter. It's really very, very practical. It's, so we're at the entry point of sattva, rajas, and tamas here. It's very, very useful to look at that. 13.
Prabir bhavaihi ebi sarvamidam jagat mohitam nabijanati mamepya paramavyayam.
Nishi, if you could repeat the verse.
Deluded by these natures composed of the three gunas, qualities, all this world does not know me well, as above them and immutable.
So if one is focused on the three gunas alone and not looking at the backdrop, that's all you see. It's like if you're focused on the movie, you don't see the screen. There might be a flood, or there may be a fire. You see that. You don't see what's enabling it. So generally, we're all caught up in the world, in our own activities, in our own natures, in whatever we feel we've got to pursue, not comprehending that it's all quite perishable, all quite transient. We always think things are going to last forever because there's a strong attachment, karma and raga, desire and attachment. It's so strongly attached to the world. So you have to work with the means, the idea. We all have goals, but one has to understand, what are your goals for? What are your purpose? What's your purpose for? What are you here to do? The moment one focuses off the preoccupation of the world, like we're doing here, we're attempting to focus on something bigger, a value other than the world. We begin to look at the world from a different perspective, gain an objectivity. So in Ramatirtha's words, the way to gain anything is to lose it. The moment one's focused on getting something out of it, you don't get it. In fact, you don't enjoy it. The moment you let it go, you gain that objectivity. It comes to you. So often we've said, don't focus on the result of action. Got to focus within. The strength is to have the power, but not use it. That's what we've got to always consider. So people are generally, all of us are generally caught up with the projection of this world. We don't see anything else. But then we get caught into little pockets of the world. I was just talking to somebody and they were convinced that when they'd watched the news, this is what it was. But then another person come from another country and said, this is what it was. Two conflicting views of what they thought the world was about or doing. So we've got to take a step inwards and back to actually see the whole picture and to see your position of what you need to do in your world, how you need to maneuver yourself to get out of it. So people who are engrossed and caught up in the world don't see me the same, don't see the self. So long as we're caught up in this world with no thought or value to look at something bigger, we get stuck with that rajas and tamas, or the gunas as it were. I think we've all done this trick. If you focus on the finger in front of you only, then everything else goes out of focus. But if you focus on everything but the finger goes out of focus. There's a little trick. Similarly, if you're focused on the self, the world goes out of focus. Doesn't mean to say you don't relate to it properly. It just means to say that's not your preoccupation. So it's like setting the focus for yourself. Let's read the first paragraph.
Brahman, personified as Krishna, manifests as Sattvika, pure, Rajasika, passionate, and Tamasika, indolent, Gunas, qualities. The three Gunas, in different combinations and permutations, constitute the manifold beings of the world. People, drawn toward worldly enchantments, disregard Brahman, not realizing the permanent, immutable nature of Brahman. They enmesh themselves in the impermanent, changing world. Deluded and lost, they seek temporary thrills from worldly attractions. Slowly, they sink in the quagmire of perceptions, emotions, and thoughts. Brahman remains out of sight.
So if you can just imagine what we're doing. Is anybody hearing an echo? I wonder. Everybody's got on mute. Okay. Okay, that's
okay. Just continue.
So imagine when you go into your world and something doesn't go quite your way, you get more wrapped up in it. Or if it goes quite your way, you also linger on it. One gets so involved in the world, there's no space to see anything else other than that. The more the world changes, it doesn't satisfy you. So the more one agitated or upset one gets. And if one doesn't have another focus of something bigger, you keep trying to grab the shadow instead of what you're actually after. So you keep trying to grab onto that change to make it stick permanently. But change changes. You can't make it stop happening. So you're always left frustrated or irritated or unsatisfied by your desires. And when you're satisfied, you're left fearing that you will lose it. When one's looking for the world to satiate and make you happy and complete. But the other way around is to look at something which is permanent, or got some more, if you don't know it's permanent, if we're not sure, something which is more substantial, and that has to be going within. So here, those who were involved in the world don't recognize, they're so caught up, we get so caught up, embroiled, that we, in our perceptions, emotions, and thoughts, we can't see the wood for the trees. And so you don't even know this Brahman exists, all this truth exists. Actually, the transient nature you believe is truth. The knocks and shocks, you can only see that's what it is. And quite rightly, as Ash pointed out, you only see what's going on outside, not able to see what's going on within yourself. So if you can't see what's going in within yourself, you don't take that time to just study, reflect, or just assess, then you have to put up with it. It's that state. Quagmires, he uses this word quagmires. It's like sinking sand. Get into it. He's saying, let's get out of it. Yes, we live on.
Jesus Christ declares the same truth. He that findeth his life shall lose it. He that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. St. Matthew chapter 10, 39. One who merely seeks worldly gratification shall lose the supreme God, but he who detaches himself from this world and pursues the supreme, my sake, shall find the supreme. Your life's achievement will therefore depend upon your focus of attention. If you seek only the limited wealth of this world, you will gain that alone. Iron and gold are good for buying iron and gold, that's all, says Swami Ramatirtha. However, if you seek the Supreme Self, sacrificing your material and sensual gratification, you will gain the Supreme. It is a law. It acts like a simple optical phenomenon. Hold your forefinger erect and a few inches from your eye. Focus your attention on the finger. Notice how the background goes out of focus. Now focus your attention on the background. The finger goes out of focus. So it is with the world and God. Focus on one, you have lost the other.
So, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. We've got to maneuver through Sattva, Rajas. We've got to maneuver through Tamas to Rajas to Sattva. If you're focused on the world, you're spiraling downwards. If you focus on something more bigger, then you're maneuvering through that Rajas to Sattva to beyond that. So there's something to reflect on. What does he mean by iron and gold can only buy iron and gold? Anybody? What do we mean by that? There's two statements here, one from Matthew, one from Christ, and one from Ramatirtha. What's he saying? Sticky.
Both the statements talk about the finite and the infinite. So iron and gold is finite. So you can only buy finite stuff with finite. Whereas infinite is beyond. You can't find infinite in, you can find infinite in finite, but not finite in infinite. Am I saying it right? It's a concept of limitation of the world, and why you can't go beyond that. So the jewels that we buy, it's just gold. There's nothing more than that. It's limited in its capabilities.
Okay. Anyone else wants to add? Sam, did you hear?
Thank you. Well, I understand the first one, and it basically says, he who finds his life shall lose it, but he who loses his life for my sake shall find it. It's what, Vidya said, that going after the limited values of life, you will come to lose it at the end, given the transient nature of things. Whereas if you go for something that is permanent, you don't have to worry about losing it. You'll find it. But I'm not sure if I understand the second one. It says, if iron and gold are good for buying iron and gold, but then you could buy anything with the money that gold is of value. You could sell the gold to buy other things. So maybe I'm just missing the point in that quote.
So, okay. Anybody want to add?
Because usually a lot of people would buy gold and they'll keep it, and then because the value of gold will increase year by year, at least sometimes.
So let's come to Brahman. Can you buy Brahman with all the gold in the world? Can you knock on his door and go, I've got this gold? Anybody else? So what's it saying? Anybody? Dharma?
So I interpret it as everything has a value. So gold has a value, iron has a value. So when both values are at the same level, then it can be exchanged or traded. But anything else above that value, which Swami Ramatirtha has seen, it's something that can't be traded in that manner. But the Jesus Christ one, I don't quite understand it. I'm probably like the opposite of Sam in that way. I still don't quite understand how you lose it and then for my sake find it. I haven't experienced that yet to understand it.
So just on that, just looking at this alone, how complicated matters can become. If we're looking at the Bhagavad Gita, how it can become misinterpreted. If we're looking at any scriptural text, in fact, it's so difficult to decipher the truth. It really needs training, or really needs intellect to be cultivated. So it's appreciated that it's not straightforward, but that it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be there to make you think, deliberately so, to stretch that intellect. So anybody else before we, what's it saying? Maybe it's too much to take two. Ash?
Thank you. I was just thinking, in terms of he that findeth his life shall lose it. I think maybe Jesus is saying that he who indulges in the world and mainly focuses on the world will just never reach the heights of what the self, reach to the self. And he who moves back from the world, I guess, comes within, will find it, find the life, find himself. I've probably not said that right, but that's the my interpretation of that. And like Dharma said, in terms of the iron and gold, it's again, it's the value. It's not going to take you to the self. It's not going to, like you said, it's not going to. It's again going to keep you within the world. It's solid material within the world.
Jyoti, you had something.
Yeah, I feel like the first quote is talking about sacrifice and finding your higher self. And the second quote for me is about like for like. What you put in is what you get out.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So maybe we recap this at the beginning of next class, because we'll have time to think on it. Good, what you put forward. Iron and gold is only good for buying iron and gold. We'll reflect on it till next class. We'll bring it up at the very beginning. And the first quote, good efforts all. Let's go. 14.
You haven't read the commentary, Parulji.
Sorry, let's go. Let's.
Was Nishi?
Nishi? I think, did you not complete?
Yeah, I finished it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Daivihi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mame vaye prapadyante maya me tam taranti te.
Sam, if you could read the verse.
Verse 14. Verily, this divine illusion of mine, made of gunas, qualities, is difficult to cross over. Those who seek me alone cross over this illusion.
So in the Bhagavad Gita, there's very few places where it, well, in actual fact, there are a few places, but it's talking about here, Maya, illusion. So this illusion is proposing we're caught up in illusion that's projected because of our ignorance of not understanding the Brahman. So he says this divine illusion of mind is made up of gunas. Difficult to cross over unless you're heading in that direction, unless you're prepared to put the effort in that direction. Otherwise, if you're putting your efforts into the world, that's what you get. If you put your efforts, your service, your sacrifice, service, if it's world related, that's what you get. If it's related to going towards truth, that's what you get. So it's difficult to cross over because, first of all, there's got to be a recognition that it is perhaps an illusion. And most of us feel there's no illusion. This is absolutely real, seemingly solid. There's no illusion here. It's real. So we won't go further on this verse, in fact. Let's just think about it. We've introduced it this week. Maybe you can have a look at this verse particularly for next week and the 2 quotes. And we'll begin with the 2 quotes next week. And then on this part, which is very much quite intricate and complex in terms of this world is an illusion. There's quite a lot to take on board. So let's go for next week. I'm just wondering, next week, do we have class because of Easter? Is Easter? I think we have it, but in case we don't, we'll just we'll write in the WhatsApp. Okay.
Thank you. Hariom.
Thank you.
Ayum.